evening. Welcome to another edition of the Houston Roundball Review presents Folks Talkin Sports. I'm Kris Gardner, owner of the Houston Roundball Review, co-founder of the Houston Roundball Review. Joining me is two of the youngsters, the young lions of FTS, and Yanez from Pawd, Slama, Jama, Community Impact Newspaper, and Let's Rage Coogs, and also James Mueller, the state traveler who got back, who was in Lubbock yesterday and is now back in town. He talked about this before he started the show. He's tired from his sojourn, but he's a trooper. He's young. He's got some energy. So he's joining us to talk Cougs. We're going to recap that. James, since you're tired, I'm going to give you the floor first, sir. Your initial thoughts on the Houston Cougars' loss in Lubbock, what you saw in person.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about this a little yesterday on Let's Rage Coogs, but it's again just the lack of discipline issues. 6 penalties for 71 yards in the first quarter. That's unacceptable. That nullified also a Tank Dell touchdown return, second straight week something like that's happened. And then you once again you still find yourself in a position to win the game, and your defense has to hold for 30 seconds. Can't do that. It goes to overtime. You're given another golden opportunity, 4th and 20. There's no way you should let that happen. They get it. And Dana was right on in a press conference after. He's like, we didn't deserve to win this game the way we played. And, I mean, there was just way too many mistakes. And, I mean, Houston still, this was their 5th straight loss to Tech, 10th in their last 11. Something about the Red Raiders, man, that just give the Cougars a problem. But, yeah, that lack of discipline and just self-inflicted wounds were my biggest takeaway, because Houston hurt themselves as much as Texas Tech was able to be effective against them.
Andy, what are your thoughts on yesterday's loss?
Yeah, and adding
you touched on a little bit of it, a lot of it during Let's Rage Cougs, but just your thoughts a day after.
No, one thing I did want to add to James' accolades about the lack of anti-accolades when he went about the losing streak that Houston has to Texas Tech, but something that the FS1 broadcast mentioned right before the game, that Houston has not beaten a Big 12 opponent going back to 2016, which is a very long stretch of not being able to beat a Big 12 opponent. And obviously, of course, the big storyline is they're going to be joining the Big 12 conference come next season. So this game certainly didn't do anything to build and instill confidence that Houston is going to be able to compete at the top of the Big 12 conference once they do make that move. And yeah, I think now that we're about 24 hours removed from the game, I think really, and especially what I got to see from a lot of the comments that people made and Let's Rage Coogs, it feels like it kind of brought up all the questions that were around Dana Holgorsen and Houston before last season, just in terms of, like James mentioned, the biggest takeaway of last night's game is that Houston just really, really looked undisciplined, especially early on, especially in the first half. First half woes again for the second straight game to start the year. They fall into a 2-touchdown deficit that they have to claw their way back, and they have to fight an uphill battle. Now, credit to Houston, they did manage to get back in the game. Credit to the defense that made plays to be able to put them in a position to take the lead late. But then again, inconsistency to go along with that undiscipline, because then the defense, even though they managed to play good and keep them in the game, they're not able to come up with a big play at the end of the fourth quarter. In overtime, they allow them to convert a 4th and 20 that, for all intents and purposes, that's unacceptable, and it ended up throwing it short of the sticks, and the Texas Tech player is the one that made the play and was able to get that first down. And inconsistency and undiscipline, I think those are the two biggest key takeaways, and I'll be curious to hear more from Dana Holgorsen, what he has to say about just the offense overall, because they've really been inconsistent. He's lasered in on the offensive line, but to be quite frank, I know there was a lot of talk of the receivers, but they haven't really been able to get them going outside of Tank Dell early on either. So those are my biggest takeaways 2 games into the season.
I want to get you guys' thoughts on this. Tony M., thank you for tuning in, and folks watching us. Andy, James, you got to help me do a better job of this. Tuning in on our Twitter account as well, Folks Talk Sports. In addition to the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel. Post-game yesterday, Coach Holgorsen commented that they coach the players about penalties. Don't make these third mistakes. There's 2 weeks in a row about issues not being able to get stopped defensively. The offensive line struggled again. He said if they don't get a consistent running game, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a long year. He said all those things. Do you take it as him pointing the finger at others, or he's frustrated and he's just hasn't been able to figure out how to solve these issues?
I'll go first, and then I'll let James follow up. But from my viewpoint, and just being able to listen to Dana Holgorsen, it's got to be frustration because he acknowledged it. It looked like, if you could have a soundbite of the coach that just wanted to throw his hands in the air and then just pull his hair out with how frustrated he is, because he did acknowledge it. Hey, we coach this stuff. It's not like we're just going into practice and then not focusing in on that, but the same mistakes that keep rearing their ugly heads, the inconsistency, and it's something that Holgorsen acknowledged, that they have to figure out a way to be able to change what they're doing, because they're not playing winning football. Was something along those lines what he said. But James, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I think it's frustration. I think there's a little bit of, the players got to do a better job on their part, not making bonehead decisions. Like, I think it was in the first half. I can't remember first or second quarter, but they get stuck on 3rd and 20, and then there's that unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, like things like that, where the players just got to do a better job of that. But then also, I think it's just a little bit of struggle on his part and the coaching staff's part to find answers, because this lack of discipline and has been evident the first 2 weeks, and there wasn't. You'd think you'd see some signs of improvement from week 1 to week 2. You didn't really. You could even say it got a little worse, possibly. So yeah.
I'm going to bring in Willy Gibson. This is bizarre. I don't know what it was. Hello, sir, in Ohio. How are you, sir?
Yeah, UH loses and I can't get in. Wonder why? Yeah,
it's strange. We had. You're the only winner because the Texans had a tie and the Browns won. So yeah, we tried to exclude you from the whole show. So,
I know.
That's all. That's what it was, Willie. Just real talk. I didn't tell Andy or James about it. I wanted to just try to block you from the show, but I had to resend them the link and it worked finally. Go figure. But we'll get Mr. Gibson's winning perspective in a second. But back to it. We're touching on it. I'm not picking on Coach Holgorsen yet, because y'all know I have done that in the past, and I probably will do it this season. But he's the head of the snake. He's the coach. He's in charge. If the players are making the same mistakes 2 consecutive games, either coaches have to do a better job teaching, coaching, explaining, or do they have to play other players who get it? What do you think about that? Andy, James?
I mean, for the most or go ahead, Andy.
No, you got it, James.
Okay. I was going to say, for the most part, like the starting age, we've mentioned this multiple times, is like 22 on their, combined starters, offense, defense, special teams. So, I mean, you'd think that with the amount of veterans they have on that team, the amount of experience, that these should be the guys that get, right? Because the guys they aren't playing are the younger guys who some of these mistakes would be more, not, I wouldn't say acceptable, because you don't want to take any of these things as acceptable, but understandable, I guess, because they're younger. But these are older veteran guys who are making these mistakes. So that really makes me question, sort of something's got to change in what they're doing in practice, in my opinion, just because it's not like it's all these freshmen, sophomores making these mistakes. It's seniors, 5th year seniors, COVID year guys. Like they have all the experience necessary under their belt, and it's still happening.
Andy, what do you say to that?
No, I absolutely agree with James. And, it's kind of not probably the best phrase to say that in terms of toss-up, but it's kind of a give and take between, who necessarily gets the blame between the coaches and the players. And James absolutely made a great point in terms of, the age of a lot of those players. And it's something that Dana Holgorsen kind of harped on during training camp, where heading into the season, he said that this was a very veteran team. I think he said that the average age was around 22 or something along those lines, which is, one of the oldest teams in all of college football. That's something that, especially they had 11 penalties total go against them last night for 121 yards. And for the second straight week, they're not only costing them yards, but it's costing them touchdowns. They wiped away a punt return for Tank Dell. And then those are points. Both games go to overtime. If that punt return doesn't get wiped off, arguably that's the difference between both games, between going to overtime and winning, and it's starting to cost them. And like James said, with a veteran team, you wouldn't expect that. It's something that they have to polish up and clean up. Now it's on the coach's responsibility to figure out what the entire coaching staff's responsibility to figure out what is the issue and get it corrected. Obviously, they haven't had a home opener yet. It kind of took the buzz off the momentum that Houston had, because now, especially when, obviously, of course, the comments that we had on Let's Reach Coogs, all the fan forums on Coug fans and a lot of the other outlets on Twitter and group chats, people were just going in. And like I said, it brought up a lot of the concerns that had been raised last season. And quite frank, a lot of people are questioning whether this team is truly prepared to compete in a Power 5 program or Power 5 conference.
Could I add one thing, Chris?
Yes, sir. Yeah, go ahead.
So I know we've talked about this a little bit, just, play calling and stuff like that. One thing I asked Clayton after yesterday's game was the slow starts, right? They've come up with 10 first half points in their first 2 games, which is a cause for concern. That was a big issue in Dana Holgorsen's early years. In 2021, they turned that around and, started scoring more in the first half, which was a big reason why they were able to go 12-2 last year. But we've talked about it, just like how conservative they are out of the gates. The play calling's got to change too. You got to take some shots early. You got to do something, because you can't just keep sticking with the same thing and expect changes to happen. The offense has been completely absent, minus a few plays. If you look at both first halves, and so I think that's another thing. The coaches, that's on Dana Holgorsen and his staff. They got to try something new, because you can't keep trying to dig yourself out of these double-digit holes, because you're not going to be able to do what you did to UTSA and come back. And even with Texas Tech, you come back, but it's still draining. And you see that. And over the course of a 12, however many games they end up playing, depending on conference championship bowls like that, it's just not a recipe for success if you're having to dig yourselves out of the hole each game.
Yep. Me and Andy were included in a brief Twitter rant from a UH fan alum yesterday. Just blasting the conservative play calls by the offense in the first half. This guy went off. Just went off on UH and the lame play calling, the inability or the refusal to go to the tight end, Christian Strahan. Just the first half, the opening drive in the third quarter. First series, go deep to Tank Dell. None of that was in the
very
first
play, too.
It was like, they discussed at halftime, maybe we should throw the ball deep. Oh, really? If you have, like the national pundits say, one of the most electrifying wide receiver in college football, why not throw the ball down the field? Lo and behold, they did that on the first play of the third quarter, and it worked. Nice little nudge by Tank, but hey, they didn't call it. He caught it. It worked. It seems like the coaching staff is taking the first half to feel out the opponent or just go through the motions. You're on the road. You were a ranked team. You're going to get the other team's best shot. You got to meet that aggression with aggression. So, this passivity was just weak. We'll see if it changes. I want to get all three of you guys on this thought. Cougs have a home opener this Saturday against Kansas. Kansas, who beat West Virginia. We saw one betting line, Will. Cougs favored by 9. over Kansas. I'm not a gambler, but damn it, I might take those 9 points, man. Well, Andy James, what do you think about Cougs being favored by 9 over Kansas? K's coming off a win, and the Cougs coming off a loss.
What I would say to that is don't sleep on Lance Leopold. I'm just saying. Don't do it.
James, Andy, 9 points. KU's getting 9.
Yeah, I mean, I still think UH will win by double digits. I would take, if I was a betting man, I'd take UH
Really?
too. But Kansas is a much better team than they've shown signs of turning things around. They're not the same old Kansas they've been. There's still a lot of work to be done, but they shouldn't be taken lightly. And it's crazy to think coming into this game, if you were to tell me before the season that one of the two teams would be 2-0, I guarantee you 98% of people would be like, UH is the 2-0 team, but it's Kansas.
Andy, what would you do? Would you take those 9 points? Oh, and James, how confident are you, James, with Cougs winning by double digits? How confident are you? Know where I'm leaning, James. How confident are you?
I'll guarantee it.
Oh,
Guarantee.
y'all heard it. Okay, y'all heard it. JDM2186 Twitter. I'm gonna put that up there as well. James Mueller, sports editor for the Daily Cougar.
I gotta make a note of that.
Now he's getting confident in his work. Okay.
16-minute mark. I gotta make a note of that for the video in the week as that goes. No, but I honestly I'd probably tend to agree with James. And what I'm more curious about is the week leading up to it, because like I mentioned, it certainly seemed, especially with the talk going in, Texas Tech, for all intents and purposes, they're not a team that is expected to compete for the Big 12 championship this season. Now, lo and behold, they could end up surprising people, but that's probably the most demoralizing thing about the loss, that Texas Tech is not who are going to be the premier programs in the Big 12, and Houston just can't beat them. And so I feel like this team's going to be motivated. I feel like they'll certainly be much more locked in, and maybe the veteran leadership will finally kick in, and they'll look like a team again at home, the home opener, that have that buzz. But I don't think they're at a point where you can guarantee anything with the Houston team when it comes to the 9-point spread. But if I had to lean one way, I lean towards James, not leaning enough to guarantee it. But I'm gonna be interested to see how the Houston fan base reacts and shows up on Saturday at a 3 p.m. kickoff again, which is interesting.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
If Texas Tech isn't expected to be one of the premier teams in the Big 12, and Houston can't beat them, what's so confident about Kansas or going into the future of the Big 12?
Yeah, I think the Cougs will be fortunate to be battling for the middle of the Big 12 when they join. Okay, they're not the top tier. I just don't see it. Everybody knows, who knows me, who's followed FTS, I am not a fan of Dana Holgorsen. Okay, his track record, I think, proves that he's not worthy of this blind faith that some folks give him. So I think they'll be competing for, hopefully 4th place, 5, 6, 7th place in the Big 12 annually. AD and the president say we are going to the Big 12 to compete for championships. Well, I'll believe it when I see it. And as a UH alum, not media, UH alum, I hope it happens. I'm just not confident that it's going to happen under this man as head coach. Andy, I'm with you. I think the Cougs should beat KU this Saturday, but I'm nowhere leaning as confident as James is with the 9 points. I would not be shocked if Kansas wins the game. I think Houston should win. It's a home game. The crowd should be hyped. James was bold enough yesterday. He did not believe the game's going to be a sellout, which is disappointing. But
and I agree with him on that point, especially after last week's performance. Doesn't seem like there's a lot of buzz for the game.
And like I sent y'all a Twitter thread too.
Yeah.
Someone commented on me. They were like, because like the typical schedule for a Power 5 a non-conference is one Power 5 and FCS and a group of 5. That's pretty typical. But they're like,
Right.
UH needs to schedule a lot better if they want fans. And I'm like, if you truly care about UH, you'll come see UH like we've talked about, rather than just the opponents. And so that we're still getting concerns about that. That gives me that makes me very weary to be like, yeah, they're going to show up this Saturday. I think it will be about average like it was last year.
And plus, it'll be 3 o'clock. It's going to be hot. So some folks be like, "Oh, it's too hot, Kris, Andy, James, Will." Oh no, I just watch it on TV. Yep, we're going to get that too.
Yeah, but some people have already commented that it's gonna be too hot to go out and support Houston, which is an interesting kind of mindset of where the fans are at.
But okay, one more time, James Mueller,
Guarantee
that the Cougs will cover the 9, as of today, the 9 points, and beat KU by double digits this Saturday. Okay, James, we'll make fun of you, but we won't hate on you, anything like that, if it doesn't happen. But there he is again on Twitter, James Mueller at JDM2186. He guarantees the Cougs will win by double digits.
I'm just having fun today, James. It's all love, but just Big Ten schools aren't allowed to play FCS schools. Just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, well, a group of 5 at least.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a different league.
I'm picking.
I mean,
I
know. Will's point, both points are valid, but my issue about that AD Chris Pesman, Vice President of Athletics, Chris Pesman, the what do we call it? The group of 5 opponent, even though going forward, that's going away too, supposedly. He wants to play Rice every year.
Mm-hmm.
Why? And I say that, I know Rice is a local team. Rice doesn't draw worth a damn. Okay? Their football attendance is anemic. I mean, that's not, there can't be much money to be made playing Rice in football annually. I don't like that either. Go ahead, James.
I get the regional math. I get the regional part, but why not UTSA or SMU or another Texas team that will at least draw a little more hype and excitement?
Agreed. And more fans will be there. More fan support could help the gate. More revenue. If it's more UTSA fans, well then more UH fans need to come to the game. Whatever. But Rice, and that's reality. I mean, Rice folks know they don't draw well for football. I'm not sure what the attendance was for Rice's win yesterday at home over McNeese, but it could have been 15,000. Hell, if 10, And we talk about the Cougs against Kansas. I think the Cougs are going to struggle against Rice unless they clean up their mistakes and get more discipline. Rice, their offense is sound. Okay, they're not talent-wise nowhere near the Cougs. Okay. But I think they're going to score some points against UH and make some UH fans wonder, man, we're struggling against Rice. Man, what is this going to look like going into the Big 12? Things like that. But, fellas, at least we're not Aggies. At least we didn't spend $1.5 million and lose at home to App State. Boy, I gave one of my friends so much grief. She refused. I was like, why are you sending me this stuff? I really hate you right now. I'm like, I do it because I care. I had so much fun watching the Aggies lose at home yesterday. But kudos to Jimbo Fisher's agent getting that money, because Jimbo Fisher, Florida State fans could tell you how much Jimbo Fisher left that program in shambles, but the Aggies still give him boatloads of money. Has he signed a new extension today? I mean, because that's how it seems to work. Jimbo has one win, and let's give more money, because what did he do to deserve the extension he got? He beat Bama. Ooh, then what else? But I'm making fun of the Aggies because it's so easy to do after they got run over yesterday. App State had the ball, twice as long, twice as many
It was
possessions
like
as
40,
they did.
41 minutes, 42. Yeah.
Yeah.
All that talent, all that 5-star talent, all that money invested in the best recruiting class. What was it, ever?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Ever?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, spend $1.5 million to take that L to App State. And how about this, guys? The Sun Belt, App State, is probably in the lead, if not Marshall, for that New Year's Six Bowl. Not a team from the American. What are your thoughts on that, Commissioner Resco? Andy, James, Will, have at it.
This is interesting, man. And not only that, to add insult to injury, next week Texas A&M is hosting Miami, and everyone it was a foregone conclusion. College game day was coming. Nope. Not only they're not coming, they're going to App State. How about that? For the Troy App State game. So adding insult to injury, come on. Not only are they not coming to College Station, they're going to Boone, North Carolina, to see the team that just beat you.
James, Andy, I don't even know where Boone, North Carolina is.
Right.
But what do you guys thoughts on App State being probably in the driver's seat to represent the Group of Five in New Year's Bowl?
James, you'll take it.
Or go ahead. If you want to go first, go ahead.
No, I guess who would have seen that coming when the schedule came out? I'll tell you, the person that looks like a genius right now is, and I can't remember his name, the Fox Sports analyst that said that Texas A&M was overrated heading into the season. Yeah,
but he had the Cougs at 8th.
Well, yeah, so he was off on that point, but he was right about Texas A&M, and I agree with you, Chris. And then when it comes to giving coaches extensions off of, arguably that Alabama win is what gave them that extension. Yeah. So I don't. A lot of these athletic programs, you kind of scratch your head in hindsight with some of the decisions they make. But if you're Appalachian State, kudos for them for being able to pull off the upset that they did and being able to control now that they are in the driver's seat to be as a Group of Five program that represents in the New Year's Six Bowl. Man, who would have? There's not really much words you can say. Like, who would have thought that in the beginning of the season? For me, in a perspective, I just go back and I just focus on the opportunity that Houston's kind of. And it's still early in the season, so who knows how the rest of the year plays out. But man, Houston, I don't know.
James, what are you going to say about the Aggies, App State? And we got more upsets to talk about too. So, and then we'll get to the Willy Gibson, the Browns.
For Group of Five, I'd put Marshall a little ahead just because they're 2-0 and the win in South Bend. But what was hilarious to me about the App State win is this team, they played North Carolina really well, but they gave up 63 points.
Yep.
Texas A&M's offense basically only accounted for 7 because the other 7 were a kickoff return.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why Jimbo didn't try something new at quarterback because it clearly wasn't working. And even King didn't even look that great in their opener against Sam Houston, even though they won easily. But it's just hilarious to me that, they go from giving up 63, they score 61, and then A&M's offense can only put up 7 against an App State defense that just, gave North Carolina points at will.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And App State's offensive line owned line of scrimmage. Owned. I mean, again, they showed those ratings, 5-star, 4-star, mean nothing. I mean, their O-line just pushed the Aggies around. Time possession, was it 41-19? I mean, who does that against a supposed big power program? But, oh, man, like I said, I had so much fun yesterday sending the pictures, clips to the Aggies, my Aggie friends. I got on the nerves. Oh, well, because what is it, Will? Through the first 50 games as head coach at Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher, 35-15.
Yep.
Kelvin Sumlin, 36-14.
Yep.
But I digress. But talking about money to burn, Scott Frost, Nebraska. Man, oh man. They got beat by Georgia Southern. He gets fired today. And he's still going to pay his full buyout of $15 million. In spite, if they had waited 3 weeks until October 1st, it would have gone on to $7.5 million.
Yep.
Scott Frost, take a bow, man. Your agent, take a bow too, man. Bravo. I mean, agents, these two, Scott Frost agent and Jimbo Fisher, are they the same person? I mean, whatever. Y'all earn your money. You're earning your percentage because your clients are getting paid almost stealing. I mean, hey, but all four of us in the same situation. I saw some of the Cornhusker fans say Scott Frost should get some of that money back. The hell you say?
For what?
What? Are you kidding me? They fired him. They gave him the contract.
He showed up to work today.
Yeah. Please. I want my money. I mean, shame on him. If he cares about Nebraska like he says he claims he went there as an alum, he should get some of the money back. Oh, my gosh, people, please. Okay. But Andy, James, just your thoughts on Scott Frost and Nebraska choosing to pay him the full buyout of $15 million today.
Yeah, I mean, my first thoughts were, the Coach O story that surfaced recently, about like when they were like, when you want me to leave, he's getting the full money. I think Scott Frost was the same way,
Yeah.
He probably knew he was gone anyway. I mean, considering how his tenure was like. So he's like, hey, I'd rather be fired today than in 3 weeks because I'm getting 15 mil out of that instead of, getting that cut. So, I mean, yeah, it's. I don't understand from Nebraska's side why I would have just waited a couple more weeks just to save that money because you weren't going to be good anyways. I mean, getting rid of Frost now versus 3 weeks from now isn't going to change much, in my opinion, in terms of the team's direction. But yeah, kudos to Scott Frost. He got his payday, and yeah.
Andy, what do you say?
Man, the business side of college athletics from the administration's perspective, how much money there is to not only to toss around and be able to invest in guys, and who knows how long, because obviously with Nebraska and Scott Frost, that's kind of the headliner right now, but there's going to be multiple coaches throughout this season that end up getting fired at similar things. I mean, whether it be, and I guess from putting it to a Houston perspective, I'll toss this out there. It kind of connects with what we were just talking about in the previous segment with Jimbo Fisher. So he got an extension after I'm sure we'll argue off of the Bama game. Well, Dana Holgorsen got an extension off the 11-game winning streak off last season's schedule. Well, what's the worst case scenario that can happen for Houston this season? And obviously, all the high expectations.
5-7.
5-7 would be, but to say obviously heading into the season, they're going with all the expectations that they should get back to the American Athletic Conference championship game and win, and they should be the ones that are being the representative in the New Year's Six Bowl. If say they do bottom out and they do get in 5-7, well, then that extension looks like a very, very bad decision for an admin after his first year here where he was 4-8. The second year he was 3-5. You had the 12-2 season, and then you gave him an extension off that. And then if he gets another bad year, lackluster year, decisions, money getting tossed in the air, and a lot of these admins get paid a lot of money to invest in a lot of people that usually don't work out.
Well, I'm gonna ask you, do you know if a Nebraska alum is paying this $15 million, or is it coming from university athletic department?
I don't know as of yet, but that's what I think happened. I think boosters think more highly of themselves than they ought. And I think them losing to Georgia Southern, an FCS school, and oh, by the way, they paid them $1.4 million to come in and pass that L to them.
Yep.
I think that was the final straw. Now, granted, and you look at it, and Scott Frost knew. He knows his contract. He knows they're just waiting until October 2nd to fire me.
Yeah.
So if I'm getting fired anyway, it's whatever.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, it's fiscally irresponsible to me.
Yeah.
It's physically irresponsible. You have number 7 Oklahoma this week. So now you send an interim head coach into Norman. You have a bye next week. And then the day you're eligible to fire him for half the money, you play Indiana. So what was the rush? I had this conversation last night during the game when it was 28-28 in the second quarter. And Scott, I'm like, there's no way. They're going to hold on. They're going to hold on. They're going to hold on for that $7.5 million. And they didn't. So, God bless them, I guess. The right booster made the call. The right booster made the call to Trev Alberts. It was like, we got to make this happen now.
And clearly that booster has the money where it's like $15 million. I got that in my sock, whatever. So, and that's the difference that I think between Nebraska and UH, Andy. I'm not sure of any UH booster who, we're learning about some in the last few weeks, with the Houston Rise campaign. But if the Cougs go 5-7 this year, I would be stunned if the booster called up Chris Pesman and said, what's it going to take? This man is not the answer for us in the Big 12. I'll pay it. He's got to go. I don't think anybody's going to do that for UH. I'd be stunned. First, I'd be stunned to go 5-7. If they go 5-7 with this week's schedule, he should be fired. But would it be Tillman? Would Tillman do that? Is there somebody else who could do it? You guys think that would happen? At worst case scenario, that another booster would do it?
Another booster, I'm not sure. I think.
Do you think Tillman would do it?
I think if anyone were to do it, it would probably be Tillman, especially at the pivotal point that they are right now. And like you mentioned, not having a tough strength of schedule in terms of from last year's teams, and even heading into this season doesn't look like, at least from the American Athletic Conference standpoint, certainly looks like the conference is much, much weaker this season than it was a year ago, just looking around at the teams early on in their non-conference slates. But maybe it's the person that gave the $10 million anonymous gift, whoever that was.
James, what do you think?
Yeah, Tillman would be the only name I could think of that would possibly do it. Unless Andy said it's an anonymous person that doesn't want to be known, because it's hard to think of many UH boosters that, have that kind of money, at least that are known to us. I still don't know exactly if Tillman would do it. I think if they were going to make a move, it should have been at the end of last season, because you want to give, you would want to give the new head coach 1 year to get prepared for the Big 12 rather than just throwing him under the fire in the Big 12. So I doubt Holgorsen will be, even if it's a 5-7 year, I doubt anyone will pay that, and that Holgorsen will be gone. I bet that he's still the head coach come next year. But yeah, other than Fertitta, there's not really a name that pops to my head.
And let me be clear, if folks are just joining us on Folks Talking Sports, I'm not predicting UH to go 5-7. Okay, this
worst
is
case
the
scenario.
worst case scenario. That's the bottom fell out, and they finished with a losing record. So, worst case scenario, would a UH booster decide to eat that contract and buy out Dana and say he's got to go? That's a complete worst case scenario. News. Thursday, September 8th, UH and TDECU announced a partnership extension that will allow Houston's largest credit union, TDECU, to maintain naming rights of the TDECU Stadium and expand its support through at least 2034 with a new financial investment exceeding $20 million. Andy, James, what are your thoughts on that?
James, you got it, or I'll go first.
You got it.
Yeah, so I think overall the interesting thing about that extension naming rights thing, again, heading into the game against Texas Tech, Chris Pesman, the athletic director, like you said, the vice president of college athletics for Houston, and overall, University of Houston president Renu Couture, they really talked about how what they were kind of envisioning is to continue to build on the momentum, kind of be able to establish stability when it comes to TDECU and that contract. And I think really the big thing about that, like you mentioned, Kris, the investment is an interesting phrase that they've used with the extension of the naming rights of TDECU Stadium, because I think just over 14 million of those 20 or over 20 that were a part of the deal are going to go for the football development center, the new football development center that they is essentially kind of the anchor of the Houston Rise fundraiser that they started over in the summer. So that was something that they were really high on. And then I think another interesting point, the remaining 6 or so million are going to go to programs across the university, not just necessarily on athletics. So I think it was an interesting way how they were able to come together to use that money that was brought up off just the TDECU Stadium naming rights, and it was much more interesting to hear how they kind of envisioned and talked through that deal. And the other thing, they still had 2 years until the original contract expired. I know that was something that was brought up by some UH fans, some UH followers that were questioning, heading into the Big 12, and the best you could do was 20 mil, so essentially 2 million per year. That was some concerns that were brought up by UH fans, but I think overall, I think Houston was much more kind of focused and really like that they were able to use 14 mil of those for that football development center.
James, you have the last word on this, and then we can talk about Commissioner Yormark coming to town on Monday.
Yeah, Andy hit on most of the main points there. I think, again, like he said, it's about building this momentum for the Houston Rise campaign, because they've talked about how they need this football operations center to get built, and they're only a third of the way through, Pesman said now, so they're looking for anything. One thing that was mentioned as well with the 10-year deal, that there's a mutual option after those 10 years for an extra 5 if both agree. I don't know the exact financials on that, but that was just also an interesting point and something to keep in note. Apparently, I didn't know this going into it, but they also had that on the original deal, but they wanted to rework things, which is where they got to the 10-20 mil. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's just another way for them to try to, show that the Houston Rise campaign is gaining momentum and try to encourage other donors to pitch in their share.
All right. Last week, Mr. Willy Gibson brought up during the Dana Holgorsen media availability, he saw a Starbucks cup on the table next to Coach Holgorsen throughout the press session. Well, last Monday, there was no cup. And Saturday after the game against Texas Tech, there were water bottles. No Starbucks. So, Mr. Gibson, kudos to you, sir, for ringing it up. I mentioned it to UH, and maybe they realized or Shipley called them and said, hey, what's going on here, or whatever. But that's been resolved. So thank you, sir, for that. Tomorrow, Monday, Brett Yormark will be in town. He's going to talk to the media. But after Coach Holgorsen's session, James, will you be there?
Yes, I will be at both Dana and Yormark's availabilities.
Andy, will you be there?
So will I.
Well, I'm going to be there too.
Oh, wow.
So 3/4 of folks talking sports is going to be in the building. They might be in trouble tomorrow.
Credential me, man. I'll get a flight. Let's go.
You can make it happen, going to the budget. Get Tony M and Wild Citizens to chip in, get Will a ticket to come join us Monday to talk to Commissioner Yormark.
Let's save that for Final Four. We'll wait.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. We'll make it happen. But yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it. Commissioner Yormark is going to, do a little site visit, tour around the facilities.
He'll be in meetings.
Yeah, I don't want to know about his thoughts on that, because it's going to be fluff. Wow, this is an impressive facility. It looks great, whatever. I want to know, what is the timetable on extension with negotiations between the Big 12, ESPN, and Fox. That's what I want to know. Is it, end of the month, this week? What's the time? That's what I want to know. Tony, I see you. We got to get Andy on. Andy's the money, the deal maker. We got to get Andy on, talk to Shipley, make it happen for FTS. Although we do have a sponsor lined up for in November. So if we can get somebody next few weeks to get us to November, hey, we're all for it. But Shipley, y'all got some money you want to give FTS? Here we are. But yeah, Andy, James, any questions? Will, any questions you want us to ask? Try to ask Brett Yormark tomorrow.
No.
Andy, James, y'all have anything in mind you want to ask him?
I mean, or go ahead, Andy.
No, you're there.
Okay. The only other thing I was gonna say, I know Pesman already said they're still planning on, a 9-game conference schedule football wise. I was just gonna see, even with these new schools, if they're still considering a sort of division thing at all, or if they're just gonna keep it, one big group and you rotate around. That would be the main thing obviously is the TV deal. But that would be my other question that I'd be interested in learning about.
Andy, how about you?
No, yeah, kind of the other thing that would kind of build on your question that you mentioned, that would be about a timeline with ESPN and Fox about being able to negotiate a new TV deal. I'd be curious, depending on what his answer would be on that, if they aren't able to come to agreement, how much focus or how much emphasis or how much value the Big 12 sees in being able to get and offers from an open market, not necessarily just ESPN and Fox, and kind of where his standpoint is of where the value of the Big 12 is as a whole currently right now. Once they do lose Texas and OU, that's probably the biggest question.
That's a good question. We'll see what the format will be tomorrow. Try to post some comments on Twitter as well as on my YouTube channel. Mr. Gibson.
Yes, sir.
You covered a team that won today.
Yeah.
What was that like? Their first week 1 win in 17 years?
Yeah. No.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. 18.
18 years.
2004.
Okay.
2004 was the last time.
What was it like?
The city went crazy. Even though it was on the road, the city went crazy because, as you said, 2004 was the last time this team went opener. And it was against the former starting quarterback, who made some comments that he thought were off the record, but the media person made them public and added a little fuel to the fire. So, big win for it. And it's the way they won, because they were up 20-7 going into the fourth quarter, top of the Cleveland Browns against the Carolina Panthers. Cleveland was up 27 going into the fourth quarter, and they slowly but surely, people were saying, same old Browns, because they gave up a blown coverage, gave up a 75-yard touchdown pass, Baker Mayfield to Robbie Anderson. They gave him another touchdown. They were up 2, and Carolina got the ball and kicked the field goal to go up 24-23. And so Jacoby Brissett, that was giving him grief for the way he played. He's a game manager. He played the way he was expected to play. Mm-hmm. Threw for 147 yards, threw a touchdown. He's a game manager, 13-24, I want to say. He's a game manager. He did his job. Now, the issue is they didn't expect him to have to play 11 games. Right. And therein lies the issue, because people are panicking right now. Like, they're calling for Joshua Dobbs week 1 already, the backup. And
everybody loves the backup, Will.
Oh, without question.
Until the backup starts.
Exactly. So, but he put together a drive, and Cade York, this kid, LSU rookie kicker, 4th-round draft pick, 58 yards with 8 seconds to go to win the game. So, I mean, Nick Chubb did his thing, 141 yards, 22 carries. Kareem Hunt, rushing touchdown, receiving touchdown. But Cade York, I mean, to say the kicker is the hero, literally, because this team hasn't had a kicker since Phil Dawson left. And for the kicker to kick a 58-yarder, less than 10 seconds left in the game, to go 1-0 for the first time since 2004. Victory Monday.
And fans, NFL fans, saw the struggles from other kickers across the league in the noon games. Oh,
Yep.
like every other game, struggles from NFL kickers.
Including Indianapolis.
Yep. And Will, you talked about a team, the Browns had a 20-7 lead, lost it and won.
Yep.
The Texans had a 20-3 lead
Yep.
Correct.
and tied.
Hey, they're still first place in the AFC South, tied because Tennessee and Jacksonville lost.
And Jacksonville lost to the Commanders.
Yeah.
Ugh, go figure on that one there.
Tennessee lost to New York. The Giants.
Yeah. Saquon,
Right.
2-point conversion.
So how about the NFC least, man? I think the Eagles beat the Lions. The Commanders won. Y'all say the Giants won. That's 3. How about that? They're far cry
And
from
the
being the best
Cowboys,
division
the
football.
Cowboys play
Bucks.
Sunday Night Football. So
Yeah, whatever.
they
That's the Cowgirls. Who cares about them? Whatever.
could be undefeated NFC East heading into Monday night.
See, leave it to the Cowgirls to lose and ruin the perfect weekend for the NFC East. That's probably going to happen because they're the Cowgirls. They do things like that. I'm a hate because it's what I've done for 30 years. Oh my gosh, 35 years. Hate them. Well, I always hate them. But I digress. But okay. Mr. Gibson, Ohio State.
Yes, sir.
The Ohio State. Who they play yesterday?
Arkansas State of the Sun Belt.
So a Sun Belt team did lose yesterday.
Yeah, and took $1.8 million out the coffers to do it. We do it right, unlike Texas A&M.
And Nebraska.
Yeah, them too.
And probably Notre Dame.
Yeah, 1.25 Notre Dame gave Marshall to take that L from them. Yep.
Coach Freeman's in trouble. Well, I'm going to say he's in trouble, but three losses to start his first 3 games at Notre Dame. He's 0-3 for the first time in history of Notre Dame football. Man.
Yeah, that's true, but they love him in Notre Dame. They love him in South Bend.
Yeah, he's not in trouble. It's just a bad look.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And his recruiting class in 23 is fire. Unbiased opinion, looking at it from afar, he has some kids coming in next year that are going to turn it around quick.
We're about to wrap it up here on Folks Talking Sports. Well, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen news of Coach Wes Miller at the Bearcats, who he's talking to talent-wise, making visits or in the home of talented players?
No, I don't have any.
I can't tell you the kids' names, but I think one of them is the top player in the 23 class, something like that. They're on a short list. He's talking to like 2 or 3 top tier players in high school for the Bearcats. So it'd be great from a Big 12 perspective, bringing that talent competition. I think all 4 of us have said it. Man, I am looking so forward to U8 and Cincinnati in the Big 12. Basketball-wise, man, it's getting better and better. The Cougs have on campus now an official visit for 6'9", 230 junior college All-American. He's in town right now. Got to teach him how to do it's Go Cougs, COOGS, not COUGS. But hey, 6'9", 230. His favorite player was Penny Hardaway, so that might be a concern. But say he's getting gotten offers from top tier programs, not just Houston and Memphis. So we'll see how that plays out. But James, back to it. In case you missed it earlier in the show, James Mueller, this Saturday coming up, Houston Cougars, Kansas Jayhawks football. Line right now is 9. Cougs favored by 9. James Mueller, what do you say, James? What is it?
I guarantee UH covers.
Guarantee.
That's a double-digit win. And why do you say that, James?
I just think they'll come out a little more motivated, and it's the home opener, and I think Kansas will keep it closer than you typically expect. But I just think something about last week not sitting right with them will just sort of start a fire in them, and they'll come out and, you know, try to show people that they're still the team that they expect to be.
Give us a final score.
41-24.
Wow. Okay, and will the Cougs wake up in the first half and score more than 10 points?
Yeah, they'll put up like 17 to 21 points, I'd say. They're gonna come out and make a statement.
Okay, you see it all right there on going across the screen. JDM2186 is his Twitter account. So, but you know,
call me out if I get it wrong. But
Tony M does not have confidence in that.
I'm predicting. I'm not predicting. No. I'm just going to stick with. I think the Cougs should beat Kansas, but I'm kind of waffling. I will not be shocked if they lose to Kansas, because the first two games, I'm not confident in the play calling. I just, you know, they're so conservative. Maybe if they open up the playbook from the start of the game and more aggressive, that make a big difference. We don't know how bad West Virginia is, but I mean, Kansas scored what?
56?
50, something like that against.
Yeah,
West
56.
Virginia. Yeah. So, I mean, their offense seems to be pretty good. So it might be a shootout, James. And if it's a shootout, then a double-digit win may not be as likely, but it's all good. Tony M says go Cougs, so he's not confident as you are. He's concerned about the play calling as well for the Cougs, but we'll see. We'll see how much pride motivates the Cougs, because, you know, sometimes pride is all it takes for at least a game to get the guys to cut off all the crap and the mistakes and lack of discipline and get it right. So we'll see if
Might
that
be a
happens.
wake-up call.
Yeah, could be a wake-up call.
Question. I know in a couple of years this will be a conference game, but Kansas coming to Houston, is this a check game?
I doubt it.
Probably. I mean, not
huge.
Yeah. You know,
Okay. I'm just curious.
Can't afford
Had
it.
they played at Kansas before?
been a long
Not
time.
recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I don't know, like, if they
Rice
had a
game probably a
home
check game.
scheduled or something.
Yeah. So, all right, gentlemen. James, thank you for the guarantee. It's always good to add some spice to the show. And let's go to Mr. Guarantee. Go to you first to close out this edition of Folks Talking Sports. How can folks find you, sir? Will, in case we had technical issues with him. Will, we got on, you know, late. James was in Lubbock yesterday.
Okay.
And drove. So he's young, Will. He drove, made the drive. He's back here. He said he's tired, but he joined us because he's a trooper. He's young like that. He can handle it. But
what's the drive?
It's a 9-hour drive.
About 9 hours.
Are you kidding?
I cut it in half. We went from Houston to Fort Worth because my grandparents lived there, and then Fort Worth to Houston.
Texas
Houston to,
is huge.
Yeah. But it was a long day.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony, for your comments. We appreciate it. And watch Let's Raid Cougs. Andy's going to have to make a plan of what he's going to do to cover Saturday's game because it's a home game. We'll discuss it, some options. We'll make that work too. Let's Raid Cougs will be on this Saturday after the KU UH game. And Andy, if the Cougs cover the spread and James is able to join the show, got to give him some love. Let's Raid Cougs doing that. But okay. Once again, James, how can folks find you on social media?
Did we cut him? James, can you hear us?
Yeah.
There we go.
Wait, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Now. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, I was frozen for a sec. Yeah, but
okay, no problem.
as you can see, you can follow me on social media at JDM2186. Be sure to, call me out if I get this pick wrong. I'm stepping out on a limb. But yeah, follow me there, and then the dailycougar.com for all my work regarding any UH athletics coverage.
Next. Willy Gibson, you got it, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Twitter, you can find me at WillGibson7. And James, as my big brother AJ Jones tells me all the time, keep your phone on. Because Saturday's coming.
Andy, you got it. You're next.
For sure, people can follow me on Twitter at Ayones_5. For UH coverage, obviously, of course, be sure if you haven't been able. That's the other thing. I was kind of curious. We had a bit down in viewership for Let's Rage Cougs presented by 5 Star Properties after the loss. A lot of fans did not want to talk, but I found that curious off albeit a frustrating loss, but be sure to check it out this upcoming Saturday. Win, lose. I guess there's no draw in college football, but hopefully it's not another overtime game after the first two games of the season have been overtime games, which can certainly be exhausting. I know James mentioned it when he hopped on the air, and Let's Rage Coogs, he had to rewrite his article a few times. And also be sure to check out Pawd, Slama, Jama, now owned by Let's Rage Coogs. We now have 100% ownership of that, so be sure to follow the Pawd, Slama, Jama YouTube account. That's PAWDSLAMAJAMA. And on that note, Chris, if you allow me to add this on the overlay, and I have no idea how this is going to look, but we are doing a ticket giveaway on the screen. Be sure to check out Pawd, Slama, Jama on Twitter. We have 2 tickets courtesy of Hoop and Holler Houston, who was the sponsor of the special hotline, the special guest hotline on yesterday's Let's Rage Cougs when James got on the show. We have 2 tickets, section 105, which is the UH side. Winner will be picked on Tuesday at 6 p.m. In order to be able to enter for the contest, you just have to follow us on Twitter at Pawd, Slama, Jama. Follow at Hoop and Holler Houston on Twitter. I'd like you see it on the screen. That's Hoop, HOOPN HOLLERHOU on Twitter, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like I mentioned, that's Pawd, Slama, Jama on YouTube, and follow Let's Rage Cougs on Instagram. So we're trying to build that brand and that awareness for the Let's Rage Cougs, for the Let's Rage Cougs brand, because that's obviously the most thing. We're trying to get as many eyeballs as possible. And also be sure to check out my online print work for University of Houston. Gallery Sports Matches Mac launched his own sports website, and I cover the UH athletics once again for them on a print platform. And it's going to be a busy week. Like you mentioned, Brett Yormark comes to town on Monday. Dana Holgorsen is going to have his press conference on Monday, so there's going to be a lot of content.
Great job, Andy, on dealing with everything live on Let's Rage Cougs on Saturday. You pulled it off, did a great job. Question: do fans need to get to follow all 4 of those to be eligible for tickets, or just one of those 4? All 4.
All 4.
Okay, smart. Build up that brand. Yes, sir. Build up that following. We're
gonna say PAWD. Is that it? PAW.
Yep.
PAWDSLAMA.
Follow. Okay, what's next? IG. I'm gonna get them. I'm coming.
Get those tickets. All right. Last,
please believe it.
And least, me, Kris Gardner, Houston Roundball Review on Twitter, the HR Review, HoustonRoundballReview.com, Houston Roundball Review on Instagram, Houston Roundball Review on YouTube. I'm getting back into my YouTube shorts, so the more and more, be sure you follow me. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for the content. I'm going to start plugging my guys' shows like Andy's show, Let's Rage Cougs, as well as AD Moore on his AdMax Corner Texans Talk. Other things in the pipeline. Maybe need to see if we get James to talk some baseball or something for his own show, whatever, going forward for him. So
it's about to be MLB postseason, so
yeah,
exciting time for
broadening out, doing big things. Rockets Media Day, Cleveland Cavs Media Day is coming up September 26th. So looking forward to that. As always, guys, thank you very much for your insight. To our commenters on YouTube, Tony M. and Wise Citizens, thank you as always. Folks following us on Twitter at Folks Talk Sports, thank you as always. Been a great conversation, a lot of fun. Learned a lot. Hope you did too. Until I'll do it again. Guys, next Sunday, you good for 6 p.m. Central?
Might have to be 6:30 Central Time.
We'll make it work. Will, what time did the Browns play?
It's 1 p.m.'s home, so it's a travel. I'll let you know.
Okay, no problem. We'll make it work. All right, guys, till next week. You guys take care. Peace.